Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from Skiessentials.com.
I'm Bob, hello.
Bob and I are here today on a brisk morning at Stowe, although the skiing is really good, to talk about the Enforcer 104 Free. In last week's Top 5 Fridays news video, we asked what Nordica you'd like us to review next, and the most common answer was Enforcer 104 Free. So I figured, why not grab my personal pair and take some runs on them. And luckily we got to ski them quite a bit a few weeks ago with Nordica. Bob, you got to ski them.
Yep. Yeah, day like today too, kind of hard, harder groomer snow, not really the typical 104 free type of conditions, but really impressive how they hold up on stuff like this.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing. And then you get like just the super playful shape in soft snow, and when you take them into the trees and stuff like that. Bob's skiing on his personal Enforcer 88s right now as well, and as a reminder, you can win those in this month's Ski Happy photo contest.
Not this pair.
Not that exact pair. Bob's gonna keep that pair.
I might auction these off at some point. I'm gonna keep these.
So yeah, when this video goes up, you'll have like 5 or 6 more days to enter photos, and then we'll be announcing winners probably the following week. So get some photos into that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the review.
Bye.
Hey skiers, here we are back in the studio to talk more about these Enforcer 104 Frees. Fantastic ski. Thanks to everybody who commented in the Top 5 Fridays video and asked us to do this one, because it's a ski that I genuinely enjoy skiing. And I got to use my personal pair, which we'll use as a reference for a few things towards the end of this review. I play around with mount point and stuff like that on mine. But yeah, before we talk about that, here it is. This is the 2022 Enforcer 104. The ski itself is unchanged structurally for 2022. So this will be, or next year will be the 3rd year for the Enforcer 104 without any changes to shape or construction or anything like that. Just to talk about graphics real quick, I love the 2022 graphic. I wasn't the biggest fan of the 2021 graphic. Sorry, Nordica. I think it's fine. But I always really liked the blue and gray aesthetic on that ski, and I'm kind of excited that they brought it back for 2022. So yeah, the ski itself is unchanged other than this new graphic, but let's kind of summarize it anyways. We did do a 2020 review of this ski, and it's been in our ski test, so we have talked about it quite a bit, but really cool ski. Let's start with construction. So it's basically got the same Enforcer build, but what's interesting is the 88 and the 104 were the first 2 skis to introduce a couple new technologies from Nordica. So one being true tip and one being carbon chassis. So the wood core extends further into the tip. We pretty much just talked about this stuff in the Enforcer 88 review. And then carbon chassis refers to carbon being kind of integrated or woven into the fiberglass mock-up of the ski. So they're actually kind of doing similar things. The true tip is really taking away swing weight. They're basically removing ABS material up there and kind of increasing responsiveness too, I think. And then carbon chassis is also taking a little bit of weight down. The carbon's lighter than fiberglass, and it also gives the ski a little bit more spring to it, a little bit more pop, and a little bit more playfulness. Other than that, they have a lightweight wood core. These free models, the wood core is a little less dense than like the 100, 94, 88, etc. And then you get the 2 full sheets of metal. So pretty much all Enforcer, or not pretty much, all Enforcer skis have 2 sheets of metal. And it's something that we've talked about quite a bit about the Enforcers, that the metal is important. It provides all the benefits of metal, which we'll get to in a little bit. But it's thinner, so it's a little bit more compliant, a little bit more user-friendly than some skis that use metal. And that's true throughout the entire Enforcer range. So that's pretty much construction. And then shape, it's an Enforcer shape. It's especially like This part of the ski on up, pretty much the same as like an Enforcer 100 or even an Enforcer 94. A little bit longer tip rocker, I think, than like the Enforcer 94 in particular, or an 88. But the same overall shaping concept up here in the tip. So pretty long rocker, but it's not abrupt. It's very smooth rocker. And then the same is true with the early taper. And we talked about that a lot with Enforcers, how important this taper shape is. Basically, because it's smooth, because it's not drastic early taper, as you tip the ski on edge and as you get it to flex, you're lengthening the effective edge of the ski, which is a big, to me, that's an important characteristic to these skis, an important element to their design. Now, what's different about the 104 compared to skis like the 100 is a very, very similar shape is in the tail. So there's not quite as much tail rocker as tip rocker, but there's a substantial amount back there, and it's enough rise that, to me, this is a twin tip. It's not like a symmetrical twin tip. There's not crazy amounts of rise back here in the tail, but I still think it's enough to fall into a twin tip category. So, in a lot of ways, it's an Enforcer 100 with a twin tip. I think that's kind of oversimplifying things, but it's more or less true, or at least an Enforcer 100 with more tail rocker. So that's construction, that's shape. Let's talk about performance. Typically in these reviews, we start with groomer performance, which feels a little silly being 104 underfoot, but I think it's important to start there anyways. All the Enforcer skis have their own kind of personality as a groomer ski. And we just talked about it a lot with the 88. Obviously, this is not as quick edge to edge as the 88, but it still has a lot of the same benefits. So when you tip it on edge, it's a little easier to flex than a lot of skis with metal. This 186 has an 18.5 meter turn radius, which is relatively short. It's not like crazy short, but among skis with 2 sheets of metal or among skis with like this tail profile, 18.5 is at least in the medium range, if not a little bit small. And then those 2 sheets of metal, they provide plenty of stability and plenty of vibration damping to the point where you can ski this pretty hard and pretty aggressively. Again, it's not quite as powerful on a groomer as something like the Enforcer 100 or especially something like the Enforcer 88. It's not as quick edge to edge as those skis, but what the 104 does really, really well is flex into these like kind of deep trenched carves, which is really fun. And I think a lot of that has to do with the flex pattern. Like I said, it's not like exceptionally stiff, so it's a little easier, especially for a lighter weight skier like me, a little easier to get it to flex right in the mid body of the ski and get it to really, really kind of like sink into a nice trenched carving turn, which I have a lot of fun with. Now, it's not as responsive out of the tail, so when you're linking carving turns, those skis like the 100 and the 94 and the 88, they do feel snappier. There's more responsiveness out of the tail. So I often find that when I'm skiing the Enforcer 104 on groomers, I naturally want to initiate my turns more laterally once you kind of like figure out the feel of the ski. And when you do so, it performs really, really well. I also think this ski is capable of bigger radius turns than the 18.5 might suggest. If you kind of just dial it back a little bit or dial back your skier input and let the ski kind of run, you can let it make some bigger turns. But I think what's cool about this ski being 104 underfoot, being pretty heavy with 2 sheets of metal, is it does feel relatively quick on a groomer. Now, the other thing that's cool about this ski on a groomer and also carries over into ungroomed terrain as well is the edge release. So the benefit of this tail shape is it's super easy to release the tail edge, especially, again, compared to skis with flatter tails. But what that means is if you're just ripping, if you're skiing like 50 miles an hour down a steep slope, you're not going to feel locked into a turn shape. You are going to feel relatively comfortable and relatively stable at speed, but also it feels like the ski has more willingness to kind of skid, and it doesn't take a lot of skier input to get there. So basically dumping speed is a little easier, a little more forgiving. And I think the word forgiving, it comes up with this ski a fair amount, and I think it's kind of important to take that with a grain of salt. Like, it's still a upper level, advanced, expert level ski, at least in my opinion. Now, when you take it off trail, that tail shape really helps. You know, it's 104 underfoot, and it's got 2 sheets of metal. It's like 2,200 and some change, 2,250 grams per ski, let's call it. So it's not like lightning quick. There's plenty of skis out there that feel quicker, like just in the way that you can kind of toss them side to side. Like we just talked about the ripsticks. The ripsticks are like 1,700 and something grams. So they feel a lot lighter on your feet, but given the stability that this ski achieves, the just damp, powerful feel, it's pretty darn easy to flick around. I ski the 186, which is pretty long for my size. I'm like 5'10", 150, 160 pounds. On paper, 186 is pretty long for me, but I never on the 104 feel like it's too demanding. And we have some really tight terrain here in Stowe, and as long as I'm kind of up for it and feeling relatively energetic that day, I don't have any trouble maneuvering that ski. In fact, it's pretty much become my kind of dedicated off-trail ski. Like if I just want to go ski a bunch of trees at Stowe, I'll take my 104s. And interestingly for me, it has also become kind of my go-to powder ski. I do have wider skis, but for East Coast application here in Stowe with our tight terrain, the amount of skier traffic we have, things get skied out pretty quickly here. I have found that has plenty of float, and I just really enjoy its blend of pretty darn good float in soft snow, and then its quickness, its ability to release the tail edge, and then when I want to get back on a groomer, even if it's like a groomer with a bunch of chopped up 6 inches of snow or something like that, it still performs really well. In fact, one of the highlights of that ski is probably its ability to just kind of track and charge through choppy snow conditions. It does that really well and much better than a ski would that has a similar, profile, a similar camber rocker profile, but is lighter. The weight of that ski, there is some benefit to the weight of this ski in terms of its trackability and stuff like that. Now, I want to talk about my skis for a second because this does come up as a question a lot. These skis come up, our audience or our customers or you guys, this might be the most popular ski to ask about, and something that comes up a lot, and I understand this question because of the shape, is park performance or like free ride ability, like kind of new school oriented free skiing, where if you want something that's more center mounted and you maybe want to dabble in the park on it. So I think my skis are a pretty darn good example. I spent a lot of time deciding on mount point, and let's just use the 2022 flat ski. There's quite a bit of tail rocker back there. So if you are the type of skier that wants a more centered feeling ski, this is a pretty good choice because it's more symmetrical than a lot of skis. So basically what I did is I measured a bunch of different spots. I measured the true center spot of the ski, so just tip to tail and divide by 2 and mark that spot. I measured the center of camber and a few other things. Kind of tried to mimic the center of side cut, which basically was the center of camber too. And ultimately, my midsole point is about 5.5 centimeters forward from the recommended spot. So if the recommended spot is there, about where my left hand is, my midsole is about right where my right hand is. Now, I will say that I don't think anyone should go further forward than that. I wanted to be able to ski these skis switch. I wanted to be able to take off switch, like say I had the opportunity to hit kind of a backcountry jump and do like a switch 5 or something like that. I really wanted that ability, but I also didn't want to screw up the way that the ski feels. So I think 5.5 centimeters forward is pretty much the limit. And what that comes out to is about 3 centimeters back from true center. So really fun for me, works really well for how I ski. I don't think I would recommend to too many people to go quite as far as I did. I think even if you're dabbling in that type of skiing or want it a little bit more centered, I think like 3 centimeters forward would kind of be a sweet spot for most skiers. And then, yeah, a fair amount of people ask about this ski in the terrain park. And to me, it works. It does work, but it's a little heavy. You know, if I had the 179, it would be a touch easier, which would arguably make more sense as a park ski for me, because I generally ski like a 170 or mid 170 to 180 length park ski. But I like the 186, so I didn't want to go down. And I took them through the park just to kind of show you guys what it's like. And to me, they're still just a little bit heavy for true park application. What will work is if you aren't like particularly serious about park skiing and you just kind of want to play around or have a ski that allows you to do some park skiing, I think it'll work for that. You have to remember how heavy it is, and a heavy ski in the park is generally not what you want. I found it felt just fine on jumps, but on rails and stuff like that, or when you're just trying to do little jibby things, it's not really the best. I think it's far better just around the rest of the mountain, just, you know, taking natural hits and turning that into like your own private terrain park, so to speak. So that's the 104 free. Something that I talked about in the written article is whether we consider it an all mountain ski or a free ride ski. And to me, that kind of depends on the skier. Like for me here in the East Coast, to me it feels like more of a special ski. It's something that I take out of my basement when I want to do something specific, and usually that is something off trail, usually involves some amount of soft snow. So to me, being here in northern Vermont, it feels a little bit more like a free ride ski. I do know people in Vermont that ski it every day, that's their daily ski, so it's not to say that it can't work for that, but I think it leans more towards the free ride category here in the East. I think that kind of changes if you were a West Coast based skier or somebody in the Rockies or something like that, where you have more expansive open terrain and you don't have to worry about quickness, edge to edge quickness and stuff like that. You're not skiing like icy firm groomers, you're skiing groomers generally with packed powder. I do think it could be more or feels like more of an all mountain ski for that type of skier. So that's the Enforcer 104 free. Really exciting new graphic. I really like it. There's like some faux carbon fiber, and then I really like these stripes kind of in the mid body of the ski. So great new graphic, but same awesome ski. So let us know if you have any questions about it as usual, and we will see you guys out there on the slopes.